everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the NB Poli podcast. My name's Joanna Killen. I'm here with my co-hosts, Brent Harris and Sean Rouse. Hi, guys. How you doing?
Hey, Joe.
Hello.
Excellent. We're here on the unceded territory of the Wolastoqey, Mi'kmaq, and Pescataway peoples in Mennequist, also known as St. John. And this week we have some very controversial topics. So we want to say to all the lawyers out there that we are not speaking on behalf of City Council. Brent and I, as City Councilors, we are not speaking on behalf of City Council, on behalf of the city whatsoever about anything discussed here tonight or on any other podcast, just for the record.
One disclaimer to rule them all. One disclaimer to bring them into the darkness and bind them. That's
I kind of should make a pendant that just says that. But, you know, it's our right to speak on issues that we care about and are deeply concerned about, and tonight is no different. So we just wanted to make that super clear because it's been a week in NB politics, has it not, fellas?
Oh my, what a week.
Nuclear.
I didn't see this happening, to be honest.
No.
Last week I didn't. You know the legislature is coming back this week, so there might be something. And as you get closer to the election, you never know what's going to come up. But yeah, this week had a lot in it, and a lot of silliness too, as we'll get into.
Yeah. So, did you already do the land acknowledgement, Joe?
I did. I already whipped that out there, friend.
Perfect. Thank you. I was just looking for my place in the thing here. So we have a lot to talk about. There's no question, NB Poly World, as we've alluded to. And we may not get to everything this week. So here's our aggressive, ambitious agenda. We have the sexy Higgs debacle on sex education. And if you'll, as you noticed, I love Trailer Park Boys. You can call me simple. You can call me whatever you want, but I think it's maritime art. It is very inclusive as a show for its time. It includes homosexuality, includes transgender people, it includes queer people, it includes black people in white dominant neighborhoods, it includes like a whole range of issues, and it never actually speaks to any of them specifically, but it makes a major statement in how it engages with them. I think those are just a couple of my progressive reasons for liking Trailer Park Boys. It's hilarious as a Charlotte County guy. So I love this play on Jim Leahy and how he's always going around saying, you better watch out, Julian. You and your sexy shirt are not here for very long. And he'll just say this stupid stuff. And I'm just like, this is where Blaine Higgs has found himself, in my opinion.
Sexy shirt.
It's
stupid sexy
shirt. Sex ed rant that has just inflamed an entire bunch of people for no good reason in a completely unrelated issue, just once again. And so that's number one. We're going to hit that. We're going to talk about Andrea Mason. We're going to talk about the healthcare debate that happened that CUPE hosted. We're going to talk about the candidates for Fredericton York and Rothesay if we have time. So we will assess that as we go. But that is the agenda, folks. And I think we're going to go over to Sean to kind of kick us off with this sexy debacle here.
Okay, stupid, sexy debacle.
Yes.
Okay, I'll try to summarize it the best I can. There's still things coming to light even today on this whole thing. So this started, I guess, last Friday, really, or Thursday night. There was a screenshot, literally a screenshot. Someone took a picture of a title slide to a presentation, a sex ed presentation that happened at the school, and it had questions like and they were pretty provocative questions about watching porn and masturbation and anal sex, and it was kind of it was meant to get the attention of the students, which it definitely would. It definitely got everybody's attention, but as it turns out, I think that's what everyone ran with, the assumption is that they had done a sex ed presentation at school about pornography and masturbation and anal sex and losing virginity and God knows what else. And there was a viral post from a pastor out here in Crispam Sis. The premier's riding, incidentally.
Another
So
Brent.
I'm another Brent. Just sort of condemning having this sort of sexual education in school. Uh, you know, really explicit. It sort of pressed some of the same buttons that Minister Hogan and Premier Higgs have been pushing around curriculum for, and in particular, gender, what we call SOGI, or sexual orientation, gender identity. So his post sort of pushed those same buttons, got a huge response, got shared around the country, got a huge response from people, mostly anti-LGBTQ. In the meantime, uh, Higgs posts this, said he's furious. He is furious, so mad about this. And this group will never present in New Brunswick schools again. And he was told it was about HPV, and it clearly clearly wasn't. And he's so mad about it, furious. And then right at the bottom, it has this little link to his re-election website where you have the opportunity to sign up for his mailing list and donate to the party and get all these fun emails that I signed up for that just get the Blaine Higgs news every week with his version of the truth. So, I mean, furious, clearly jumping to the front of this outrage parade and leading people right to his website where you can donate. And, people really get bent talking about how this was, beyond the pale and inappropriate for students. And then people start asking more and more questions. They get a hold of the Thirsty for the Talk people, which is the name of the group, who put together that slide that was shared. And they say, yeah, that was just the title slide. It's sort of to advertise our organization, our sex ed website that teens go to. This was an information session on HPV, just like we said. And, we vetted these slides with the Department of Education, so we don't know what the problem is. And Higgs and Hogan were both like, this was never vetted. We never saw these. And then they went,
vet it.
well, they went back to the people and they said, we have call logs. We know exactly who we spoke to. This was vetted. We've given this presentation before. So, if you if you want to call us a liar, have at it. We've got the receipts. So back to the legislature this week. We're in session again. This is Wednesday here today when we're taping. So they've been in 2 days this week, and Higgs actually did a scrum on this yesterday, and they said, did you know it was about HPV? And he says, I don't know a single parent who wasn't outraged by that slide. And they said, yeah, but it was about HPV. I don't know a single parent, parents are obviously being excluded, and that's a problem. So why'd you link to your fundraising website? Next question. It's like, what? Mm-hmm. And the reporter who asked the question is like, no, I mean, you obviously linked to your fundraising website, so why'd you do that? And next question. He said, I said next question. He turned away from the reporter, so which is just looks terrible, right? He looks like, I don't want to talk about this. He obviously had no idea when he pitched a fit over it, probably had no idea that it really was an HPV presentation, but clearly saw the opportunity to rage farm and fundraise and get people mad and try and get some social conservatives to rally to his, I guess, party for the upcoming election.
And rally they did. I saw Brent Ingersoll's lengthy tirade about this, and I went straight at him in the comments of that, as well as on Andrea Mason's reshare of Brent Ingersoll. And you look at it and it's like there were no attempt to try to figure out what the facts were from the presentation. There was no attempt to figure out what what was or what didn't happen, and the premier just jumped knee jerk response. I mean, I fielded a call from a guy. I won't name names, but my God, I mean, this person spent 17 minutes. I timed it, 17 minutes before I even got a chance to get a word in. And all I did was show up in the comment section and said, look, like, this issue is being weaponized by a premier who has an axe to grind and an election he's going to lose, and is looking for you to get wound up into anything that's going to be prefer him and his position and policy on this stuff. And look, I don't think that we should jump the gun here. We can't go back to the 40s and the 30s when we didn't talk about anything and we tried repressing everything and we tried to just tell everybody.
All the repression got us to the highest teen pregnancy rate in the entire country for years and years and years.
Yeah,
we're just starting to turn that ship around. But continue. Sorry.
No. And I was just gonna say, like, 17 minutes I listened to this guy, and it was. And God love the guy. Like, he was doing his best to try to stick around and talk about the issues. But he's like, I worry about our country and I worry about their birth rate. And if we don't have a birth rate of at least 2.2, it's not going to be good for the future of this country. And, I mean, I don't know, but like, if people are having anal sex, you can't have babies that way and blah, blah. Like, I'm not joking. Like, I am not kidding. I am not joking. This is how this conversation went. And I listened to it for 17 minutes until I finally broke the news. And I was like, I'm a municipal councillor. What we need to be concerned with here is, why are our district education councils, which are supposed to exist to be able to take your concerns and to bring them to the curriculum and the superintendent, clarify them, change things, whatever, get the parental consent that's needed, get the parental at least information sessions if they're needed. Like, imagine if there was, this is kind of what I said. Imagine if there was a local group of elected people that sat there to represent you in order to figure out this and to hold the government and the presenters of this type of stuff accountable. I was like, oh, wait, there is. And it's trying to be, right now, the government is trying to cancel it. It is taking one district education council to court. It is under-resourcing them. A district education council representative who's elected at the same time I was is paid like $3,500 a year or some stupid stuff. Like, they're paid nothing. They have no resources to be able to get your attention. Yeah. And you wonder why they are not able to keep in communication with you. I couldn't even find my district education council rep for a long time. Anyway, so we had that was my anecdote. That was my conversation that I had out of all this. It was a mess.
But it's funny how this just was started with one screenshot and then completely spun out of control, right? Everyone's like, well, where's the rest of the presentation? No one had seen it. Because if they'd seen it, they would have saw a bunch of facts about HPV. So it's like, you wait for the other shoe to drop. This is all about that one screenshot and Premier Higgs being furious and winding everybody up.
It's really, it's wildly inappropriate to me that this way it was done this way. We live in such a time of immediate access to the internet. All of our kids, mine is I give him a rope to kind of hang himself when it comes to technology. But it's because we talk about internet safety. We talk about things that you're going to see online and what's appropriate for your age and what isn't. But there's not a lot of parents willing to have that conversation with their kids. And there has to be a safe place at school for children, teens especially, to ask these questions, because STIs run rampant in this province. Teen pregnancy still is a huge issue because kids aren't getting the education they need on some of these topics, and they're having unsafe sex. And like, the fact that he wants to limit this is not surprising to me. It kind of ties into the fact that he didn't show up to the healthcare conversation, because sexual education is healthcare. That is a huge part of it.
Right. Yeah. But, it just goes to show he did this entire, and was there coordination between that pastor and his riding and Premier Higgs? did Premier Higgs know he was going to post that? Did those two talk? I don't know. See, the timing was awfully convenient and coincidental.
And all in a weekend, like
Here's
all
Right.
and so my gut response to you on that, Sean, is like, look, I've never seen Brent Ingersoll like to kind of speak in favor of, not in favor, but to speak
Devil's
supportively.
advocate.
Yeah, as a devil's advocate. There we go. It's funny. I'm being devil's advocate for a pastor. That's what's
That's
funny.
fine. That's good.
But, I've never seen this guy wander into the trenches of this political discourse and lay it out in such a way that's like, I'm finally at my breaking point.
So
But
inflammatory.
But very inflammatory. You've got a hyper charismatic fundamentalist Christian running just one riding over in Hampton with Faitine. We've talked about her many times. We've been sued by her once for talking about her because they don't like it when we speak the truth about them. And we're this little tiny podcast getting their attention. And I find that hilarious. But I don't know anymore. I would have said before, look, I don't think Brent has been that type of character. But with the amount of money that has come in, and they won't tell us how much, like the Progressive Conservative Party and Steve Outhouse, who used to be a former pastor, won't tell us how much church money is coming in from appeals, from e-blasts, from nonprofits that are church adjacent, that are pseudo-church Christian advocacy bodies. We're not getting any of that information, and they won't tell us because they went on a fundraising tour out west, which targeted those groups in BC, in Abbotsford, BC, which is the Bible Belt of British Columbia, where Higgs was, all through Alberta and all this. And I don't know anymore. Like I would have said 6 months ago, I don't think Brent Ingersoll's that guy from the Wesleyan Church, from King's Church, but I don't know anymore.
I don't know. And I don't know that he is either. All I know is if it wasn't coordinated, Higgs wasted no time jumping on it, blowing it up, sending out an email or a tweet on it, and sending everyone to his website to sign up for his mailing list. And oh, by the way, can you spare $5 while you're there to help promote family values in our community? So,
or what is
the
it? What is it,
timing
Sean?
was.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
It's like the family values piece, but also this whole parents not being in the know about their kids piece.
Right. I mean, have any of us seen the content of a sex ed presentation in the past 10, 15, 20 years? Probably not. I know when I was in junior high, back when they had junior highs, back in the 80s, these were the exact same questions that were being asked and answered at school. So
Yep.
I'm not seeing anything crazy here. And it all happened in a sex ed class, and we all walked away better informed and armed with good information. Now, I remember my parents consenting to me being there, and maybe there could have been a consent for an HPV presentation just because there's a kind of a racy title slide.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Which is a dog whistle. Like that's all that is. That's a dog whistle. Like when you're starting to take title screens and say, hey, here's an indictment against this entire organization and the entire state of affairs of our education system because of a title screen on a PowerPoint, that's a dog whistle. And what frustrates me so much is that we don't have people in the electorate who are willing, maybe they're willing, but who aren't immediately jumping to that conclusion. And I know there's nothing we can do, but when I see stuff like that, I immediately say, okay, is this a trope? Is it a dog whistle? What more information do I need in order to judge this? Because Facebook is a cesspool of mess and, stigma and taboo.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, of course, I'm immediately suspicious if it's a dog whistle or if it's a political weapon. And yeah, we don't have a lot of people. Like, I mean, Pastor Brent Ingersoll has a congregation of over 1,000 people.
And he can start his own school. If he wants to protect what children are learning about in a public school, He can start his own King's Church school for like horse blind kids. But like, honestly, it's enough is enough on my end at this point as a parent. I went to a Catholic school when you did have to consent to sex ed being taught to the kids. And there were kids that left the class for that piece. Catholic schools don't exist anymore for a reason.
Well, they do in Ontario.
They don't here,
No,
unless
that's right.
you want to pay to go to Divine Mercy and be in a private school in St. John. So like, those exist for these reasons that you can absolutely, hit up if you need to. But all of this religion entering our schools now is like, I feel like just being a Pastor Brent Ingersoll and getting right on the internet and writing a 15-page tirade about how we need to keep religion out of schools. I don't think and I don't know if this part of the story is true, but there was reports of kids being chastised for leaving. That's not right. Bullying's not right. You should be able to leave when you want to leave. Like that's totally, fair if that actually happened, but I don't know if it did. And the Premier just setting kerosene onto this topic again, to me feels so calculated. Like it's almost like there wasn't enough fiery outrage over 713 anymore. That's in the courts. They're getting some slack about it. They're getting beat up in court. So now let's get this fired up again. This feels like classic Steve Outhouse. And
100%.
This is how this guy wedges. He looks
100%.
It's shark, right? As soon as that post came out, that boy was on it within 20 minutes. He was on it. It didn't matter if it came from Funday High or Quiz Pam. That screenshot, Steve was out there getting ads ready, getting people called. This is how he wedges,
Yeah, and we say it's the Premier's post, but Steve is the one who posted it for him, of course. Steve wrote that whole thing. He might have got Higgs to approve it, but
the Premier's probably up in his what can you share the Lackland Estates hot tip?
Yeah, we had
an anonymous tip.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Sorry. This was so funny. We had an anonymous tip about one of our podcasts a few weeks ago saying, hey, just so you know, from one of our listeners, thank you, loyal listener. We will not mention you by name, but that was a great tip. Saying, just so you know, the reason that Lackland Ridges has a progressive, conservative, friendly mayor now, who just got elected in after one mayor got completely shot out back and then thrown to the dogs, basically is what happened to her for issues, and had the province be it was the only time in this municipal reform stuff where the province actually stepped in to take over the administration of a municipality because of a mess. They said you should be you should pay attention because most of progressive conservative insiders with Blaine have camps around this lake around in Canterbury region. And I don't know if it's Heart Lake or which lake.
It's like North. I never heard of this provincial park, and that's on me. But it's North Lake Provincial Park, and it's a tiny little border park. And Erica Hashi, a bunch of conservative MLAs, all summer up there. So my theory is
Higgs does have his own.
He was opening up the camp, and this all went down. And Outhouse was ready from Ontario to have this all.
He was down at the grocery store.
Ready to go.
Higgs was down at the grocery store in Canterbury getting something, heard about all this mess of the mayor and said, well, I'm going to do something about this. I don't know what it was. I shouldn't say this is exactly what it was, but I don't find it, Ed, to be a coincidence at all of the disposition of this administration. And yeah, I mean, none of us are allies of the administration, but back to the sex ed thing. I agree, Joe. Like we have an education system, and as somebody whose kids are homeschooled right now, and it's not something I want them to be fair, and I haven't talked about this on the pod very much, but this issue hits home to me because there is no regulation around homeschooling, right? People love to talk about the HSLDA and the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, but if you watched even stupid pen I have, sorry, I'm over here waving it around. If you watched John Oliver's take on the HSLDA, you would see a predatorial, Republican-allied, church-allied organization that's basically a front for homeschoolers who want to opt out of a consensus built education system. And we may disagree about all kinds of things to teach our kids. But the one point that I had to folks online was this: I want my kids to be able to leave high school and understand how to navigate a difficult, controversial, and potentially conflict-ridden conversation. I don't want them to walk out of high school in grade 12 when they turn 18, 19 years of age. I don't want them to walk out and have no experience of navigating a conversation with somebody that thinks differently, that may be combative toward them, and not be able to articulate themselves, not be able to hold space for that person and say, hey, you know what? I've never thought about your opinions in this way. I don't know much about this perspective, this religion, or that thing that's driving your belief behind this, but I respect you in it. And you know what? I'm going to think about it more. We don't have to settle this conversation right now. We should talk again some other time. Like, be able to navigate a conversation that's like that. I couldn't do that until I was in my late 20s. And I still can't do it half the time. And it's just like, I don't want them to be raised in an environment that is so insulated from conflict and controversy that they have no clue how to navigate it when they encounter it. So at the very least, like, we're talking about, if you're homeschooling your kids, you have the right to teach them what you want. And if you're in the public education system, I don't think politicians should have the right to weigh in and weaponize their political dogma against the rest of us. But
yeah.
Anyway.
So, I mean, no, I appreciate all those comments. And this is the kind of thing, right? So at the end of the day, take all of the big reaction from the Christians involved in Brent's church, which he incited.
Yep.
I think that's a fair comment, against sex education based on that one slide. And, the content on that slide was probably 1,000 times shorter than the editorial he wrote about it. And I myself, when I was attacked about LGBTQ kids, I wrote a long response too. So I'm not, I'm not throwing stones in the glass house, I guess. I mean, I also opined on it. Higgs fundraised off it. Steve Outhouse got his whole organization ready. He built a contact list. It was an HPV presentation. It was about HPV. All of this noise, all this huge overreaction, all of this denials. It was over at HPV presentation. And now they've said these people can't present any information in New Brunswick schools anymore on HPV. They're not saying, oops, you know what, this one got away from us, we overreacted, and now that we fact checked, we found out what the content of this was. We didn't like that title page, we think that was inappropriate, but of course we want to educate students about HPV. No, just the opposite. It's like, this organization is not allowed to present in New Brunswick schools anymore. And,
cancel culture.
Right. I mean, so
ironically,
at the end of the day, it's embarrassing. I listened to the representative from that organization on the radio today. She's just like, no one has a problem with this. We've presented in New Brunswick schools before. It wasn't about what they think it was about. So why are we banned from New Brunswick schools? And these are people who present on HPV all over the world. Yeah. But little New Brunswick is clutching its pearls. It's embarrassing.
Can I share my screen for 1 second? I really want to show you guys the gonorrhea content that the government of New Brunswick shares. Okay.
Yeah,
you should be Brent.
1 second. All right.
Okay,
so
I just want to share this with you guys because
okay, here it is.
I, as somebody who takes care of their sexual health, as we all should, saw this at one of these centers here, and so this one, catch feelings, not gonorrhea. Gonorrhea is on the rise in NB, and you can find this. Gonorrhea is actually on the rise in nursing homes, in special care homes. So there's some people catching some feelings over there, but it was there was this particular one that they got some trouble for, because it said gonorrhea is on the rise in NB, pass it on. The message, not gonorrhea. And that got people up in arms, because they were like, oh my gosh, you guys are it's, the message isn't clear, right? Like you're saying pass on gonorrhea, what if they don't read the brackets, blah blah blah. So the government itself has been sort of in hot water for some of this stuff. So it's one of these things where they can literally, they're responsible for the sexual health of people here, and they're putting out these provocative kind of ads.
Catch your attention.
Yeah, like catch feelings, not gonorrhea. That to me is like so thirsty for the talk-esque. Like, and those posters are at teen health centers, sexual centers, they're at doctors' offices, like they're out front. So
this is this is like to me, it's like, this is, and I know we're going on like here, so we'll tie it up here as best we can, but like maybe we can just make a comment on the climate in which we find ourselves. Like, I know we're talking about the premier weaponizing this, and I know we're talking about a pastor cashing in to get some attention and get the mic for a minute, and I know they all do it for the guise of protecting our kids, just like whatever that woman's, like Ned Flanders' wife from The Simpsons is, oh, think of the children. It's like, I could have said, think of the children when you take them to Costco, to be honest. Like, I can make a great case for why Costco is the religious temple for the consumeristic God that we worship, that is burning our planet. But I'm not doing that. I mean, I could do that. I won't do that. But I mean, I just did do that. I shouldn't say I won't. But like, I'm just saying that, like, we're in such an era now where people, they are not looking to have a conversation. They are looking to react, and I don't know what to think of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone rushed to judgment. No one had a cool head on this. And again, everything that we've talked about today, and the big overreaction from parents, from religious officials, from the minister's office, from the premier, had nothing to do with what actually happened. And no one's just taking a breath and saying, boy, do we feel stupid. This was all about HPV and just educating kids about what it is. It's like I say, it's embarrassing. This is part of the silliness I think is going to happen as we get closer to the election. If we didn't have an election, would Higgs have reacted that way? Probably not. Probably would have taken a breath. Probably Hogan would have said, I'll get to the bottom of it and report back.
Yeah.
We would have said, oh, false alarm. It was all about HPV. Although we didn't like that title slide. Yeah, there's nothing to be scared of here. This was all pretty vanilla stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a vaccine that they give our middle schoolers, just for the record, which my son has had in class time. So it's a public health thing, and it's been turned into a political grenade, and and once again, our children will suffer from lack of education on some of these things. So
and not just education, but in their parents getting outraged and demonizing the other side. Like, this is a welcome message for people now in cult followings, right? Like, this is the welcome to New Brunswick, where our premier actually stood up against the woke leftist agenda, and you can be confident that we're not going to allow any of the following, right? And you just insert tribalism message here, right, about trying to create us and them dichotomies. And it's so, man, is it ever discouraging. Anyway,
well, and that's why we have to call them on it when they do things like this, because if we just accept it and say, oh, that's just politics, we're going to get more of the same.
Yeah, good point.
I know, and you feel weird, right? Like you feel like you're going to be called. I saw, your wife there, Sean's
That's
the
right.
comments she's gotten
Amanda's, yeah.
in response to this, speaking out against it, and you're called everything but a white man, like basically under the sun, for not being Team Higgs on the approach here, which is just what you guys went through last year too.
It's all the same people who tripped out over policy 713 came at us for questioning this, and we didn't
Well,
even
it's
really disagree with it. We just said, I the comment I made sort of just said, hey, let's not mix religion and politics because you'll see what happens. And then it was all anti-trans right from the go, and groomer and pedophile and so on and so on. So
I got hit with the same thing. There was a guy at the when they had the protest for parents' rights back. So there was a guy that went face to face with me and toe to toe with me that got right in my face and which pushed me back until I finally gave him a shove out of my face and back, because behind me there were 3 or 4 very, like, I'm not going to call them fragile. I took my role in that position as being a bit of a defender role. Like, hey, this person behind me is trans. There's a queer person behind me. There's a younger person behind me. I didn't know if all of them people were behind me were straight, gay, didn't matter to me. But I could just tell that they were feeling threatened by this big crowd. So I kind of stepped in and like was doing the chant, like, let teachers do their job. Don't demonize teachers, stuff like this. And this guy got up and I pushed him away. And that got caught on camera, of course. None of the rest of it got caught on camera, but that got caught on camera. And he was on there this week, same deal, being like, I tried to tell you guys that, this was coming and now it's here and they're trying to teach and groom your kids in school. And Brent Harris is a pedophile and blah, 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 and wants to watch your kids and all this stuff. And I'm like, man, is it ever a tinderbox moment here?
yeah, but what would a responsible leader do? If someone with the best interests of the whole province in mind do in this situation? Completely the opposite of what Blaine Higgs did. Would have appealed for calm, would have asked people to take a beat, would have said, we rest assured we have a school full of professionals who would never expose a child to anything inappropriate. We'll get to the bottom of this, and we'll follow up with you. Yep. Everybody, don't panic, and then we'll come back and just explain what happened, and everyone would have went, oh, that people could have lost it over that. That was a big nothing burger. Yep. I'm glad everyone was calm and cool about it. That is not what he did. He automatically weaponized it to try and juice his poll numbers. So that's and you're right. I don't support him, but I'm gonna call him out for that. If he did have a good reaction, I would call him. I would praise him for having a calm head, but absolutely not what happened, and it's poor behavior.
Agreed. Okay, Joe, any final thoughts before we move on to Andrea Mason?
Oh, I'm just depressed about this one. I think it's just part and parcel of what we've been experiencing for a number of years now. And hopefully we're on the downhill slope towards him being up at Lackland Ridges at the camp, not bugging the rest of us, because the tyranny has got to end soon. And I appreciate some of the former conservatives now all over the internet, Jason Sully and even Andrea Mason clapped back in a pretty hilarious way to Matt Higgs, who's a prolific conservative Twitter guy. Oh, there's my kid in the background. That, you're paying $20,000 a month for memes, taxpayers. Like, she had a really funny comeback. So, we're seeing a lot of them jump ship, move on, become contrary to the main PC message now. So I don't know. I have some hope.
Well,
so yeah, I think Andrea's feeling, I know we're going to go on to this topic, but
perfect segue.
She's definitely feeling a little more able to speak out now and express some of the disappointment she's had. So I don't know who's going to kick this one off, but
No, I mean, this is good. I think we already did.
Yeah.
Here's my hope. My hope is that Andrea is listening to this pod, and that Andrea is finally going to come on, because I've invited her personally on here 3 times. And I know she's busy and she had a lot going on, but now maybe it will be different. But I look at this and I just think, man, dear life, Steve Outhouse, as much as we talked about this being all Steve and blah, 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 he wedges well, and like this is going to juice his poll numbers. The only game they have with Higgs, with a premier that is so disapproved of, which is so controversial, which is so polarizing and despised, even by his own party. Like, this is the big difference I mentioned last week with Daniel Smith and Doug Ford. Those two did not have a mass exodus. And now we have one more to talk about. The same week that he was trying to put something in the window about what he stands for, he lost another MLA. Like, this is an absolute, like, people make fun of St. John Comedy Council and call it Comedy Council. This is comedy legislation. Laughable legislation, let's say that. I don't know what
legislature,
laughable legislature. Like, it's insane. I've never seen such a mass exodus of MLAs in a sitting government in a majority position just say, hey, we're done. And, you know, like, Andrea now was a stronghold candidate. Andrea probably still is one of the next leaders of the PC party, my opinion. I expect that she will run for leadership when Higgs is finally done. But here she is leaving, saying, hey, I tried to hold on. I tried to do something that I could from the back benches. It can't be done. I'm not going to add my name to this, you know. Like, it's quite a spectacle. And it just must frustrate the internal machinery of these, you know, heavy hitter PC planners and organizers like Steve Outhouse that come down. And he's not alone. You know, there's other consultant groups that are being tapped. You can be sure that Jenny Byrne and the team around Pierre are in touch with Blaine's team once in a while. Corey Tonight, all of them. You can be sure there's some conversations, Hamish, all these conservative organizers. And here they are trying to capitalize something and have yet another PCMLA leave. It's insane. Yeah.
And so she would be the 12th, Andrea Anderson-Mason. It was the Bundy the Isles, I believe, is the old name of the riding. MLA announced that she wasn't going to run again. I think she was holding out, waiting for Higgs to come and make peace with her, because I think she really does like the job.
Yeah, I agree.
I think she feels she's good at it. She knows a lot about it. She wants to keep doing it. And the thing that I think happened in the past week or so is the lid came off that the Riding Association had announced who their candidate was going to be for the upcoming election. They haven't nominated him yet, but they announced it on Facebook. And, you know, and it wasn't Andrea. So obviously there was nothing to hide there anymore for her. Mm-hmm. The word was out that she wasn't going to be the candidate for them. And, you know, and she sounded disappointed in her interview with Jacques Bertrand that Higgs hadn't come and spoken to her and tried to make peace. And I think she would have liked to have stayed. I think she would have tried to bargain with them a bit about how they were going to work together in the future, maybe moderate him a bit. And honestly, Higgs needs her. She's very popular in that riding. And
she's, you know, and she's popular around the province, not just in that riding, right? Like, she's made some inroads with some of the stuff that she's done. There's no question. But, you know, she's one of the biggest majority winning candidates that he has.
Absolutely. So I said this to somebody on Twitter. He needed her more than she needed him. She can go back to being a lawyer tomorrow. It's not like her skill set is the best job she's ever had or anything. She was doing fine before she got into government. She went in to make a difference. And And she is a conservative, not conservative like Steve Outhouse, but she is, a more conservative member, but,
That's right.
progressive enough to recognize that you have to work with and protect children too. So in any case, it's a big loss for Higgs to lose her. I don't know if his voters, I suspect they will. I don't know if they will, but I think they will end up punishing the new candidate, the new PC candidate, and voting for an alternative. If
Who was it? I didn't see that. Sorry.
it's not publicized yet, so I don't want to share the name.
Oh, okay.
As soon as it hasn't been publicized by the party, so just in case something changes, I don't want
Yeah, no
I
worries.
don't want to spread a rumor. But in any case, yeah, I think there might be a backlash for the way they've treated her. I think people
Sounds
admire
similar
the
to
way she stood up for her.
similar to the process in Hampton, would you say? Like how that was done? Because it doesn't sound very straightforward.
Yeah, I think anyone who wanted to stay, who was on the wrong side of Higgs, sort of got the shaft, so to speak.
Well, yeah, I'm hearing rumors about a similar meeting about to be held on the west side in the Lancaster riding as well. A whole new slate of people, not, the old Dorothy Shepherd crew. And yeah, it's all of these things are seemingly happening with cloak and dagger, hushed tones. And it sounds like it's becoming a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Higgs is not taking any of these people back, any of the six. And when you think about it, and he would have been the one saying more free votes in previous election campaigns on a non-binding resolution. And Andrea said this in her tie-up interview. She said, "We went to a caucus meeting. We agreed to send Policy 713. Me and the other lawyer in caucus agreed that we should send Policy 713 to the Child and Youth Advocate, another lawyer, just to make sure we're on the right side of the law."
Mm-hmm.
They all ended the meeting on the same page, and then the next day they announced the changes as though that meeting never happened. So, yeah, it's not like they walked into this knowing that or I should say they walked in, it's not like they had no idea that this could be legally troublesome from a rights perspective, a constitutional and charter perspective. They absolutely knew. Their lawyers warned them about it, the lawyers in their caucus, and told them to get a second opinion before they pulled the trigger, and they pulled it anyways. So,
I mean,
and she's getting punished.
And that was exactly, I mean, I know we have to move on talking about candidates in the next election here, but I remember talking to Arlene Dunn a few weeks ago about something unrelated to politics, but then we drifted into politics because, of course, and when she laid it out like that, she corroborated the exact same story. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, like I had no idea it was that bad. Like I just assumed
Yeah.
they were all behind closed doors and there was a majority of cabinet that said, we think this, and the premier went with it. But no, like the overwhelming majority was against anything. They found out the next morning when they saw Hogan off talking to the press. And they were like, what's he talking about? Oh, he's talking about... Anyway, it was like baffling to hear
Yeah.
that that's the state of that party.
There just has to be some karma for these poor women that have been through this, and men who've been through this too. But I think it actually can lead to our next topic, which is Higgs not attending the CUPE interview.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like confrontation is not the man's strong suit. And it's easier to exile than it is to have these
Engage.
really difficult conversations with people who don't agree with you. But I that's my take on him not showing up for the CUPE.
It's not his strong suit. I agree. They're trying to hide him in the basement. That's what Steve did, with Danielle Smith. Hid her in the basement, brought her out once in a blue moon to kind of make an announcement or make a point, let the candidates run the election, and then, managed to wedge well enough to get Danielle Smith the victory over Rachel Notley. Well, I don't think it's going to work here, but it looks the exact same.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I know they talked about that in the legislature today, and they said the reason was it was because CUPE sponsored this, and it was one of the unions who they legislate the pensions for in December.
Hmm.
They just said we're not going to participate in anything CUPE. And it's like, well, CUPE sort of is all of your healthcare workers, so I mean,
Like all
yeah,
of
you
them.
can, yeah, like so. And that was the easy retort from Susan Holt is, I can't believe you're disrespecting all of your healthcare workers like this. They
Hmm.
are that union. You can, they tried to Fitch said, oh, it's the leadership who were disagreeing, not the healthcare workers. We love them. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
They want
Whatever.
you to
Story.
vote
Nice
on
try.
whether or not they're gonna like accept a contract or not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
try. But
Mhm.
yeah, so it was obviously a lame reason. It was and if it wasn't, which I don't think it was, genuine, it's lame. It's so lame. To your point,
Hmm.
you can't even come to a debate now unless you're totally okay with who put it together. It was moderated by Terry Sege, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yep.
you're not going to find anyone more fair or moderate in this province for a debate.
No, I
So,
agree. I mean, the Greens grabbed Terry Sege for a panel discussion with their AGM, and I'm like, Terry Sege is hitting the rounds right now, but it's because
yeah,
he's a fair and not afraid to drive a hard question.
yeah. I mean, it's just so, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Just such a well known quantity, since so low stakes that they were going to get, unfair gotcha questions, but still didn't show up to defend his record, which is substantial. He's got a lot to answer for. And maybe someone said, oh, maybe he just didn't want to show up and get nailed about a sexual health conversation. And God, I hope that's not true because,
I
again,
was,
that
yeah.
would be so lame.
I was
So
surprised he
lame.
spoke for 7 minutes the other day, but to your point earlier, Sean, like he was deflecting every single time the question was asked about the fundraising piece and was just doubling down on the rhetoric that he was fed or fully. I'm sure he fully believes what he's saying, but just using those key terms. And you see Polyev do it. You're seeing a lot of the similar behavior in the States. Like it's a tactic, and that he's fully embodied at this point with
Yeah.
the avoidance of debates, of you know meaningful scrums, meaningful answers to questions, things like that. So we're
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
surprised.
and because there's a diminishment of the media, and Polyev wants to cancel the CBC, by the way, in case you hadn't heard. It's basically the
No.
it's basically the one thing that he could run on and probably win because so many people are so frustrated with the media, and I understand why. But like, imagine what happens when we don't have any media to actually hold any accountability or any light to the darkness. It's going to be crazy. But we gotta move on. I know we're there's a lot more to talk about here, but can we talk about Rothesay?
I
Yes.
And
think
I'm
so.
gonna pick this riding this week because Sean, you mentioned it as one of the ridings that we have a full slate of PC, Green, Liberal, maybe NDP. I'm not sure if we've seen an NDP candidate announced there.
Not yet.
Not yet. The NDP are, and no indictment against them because the PCs, the governing party, don't have nominated candidates on many fronts. So I'm going to bring you up here. There's your screen.
So let's just go to
Perfect.
Rothesay here. So here's our Rothesay. Just I'll take this away for a second so you can see where it's at.
Yeah.
The borders here. So it goes out on the way to the airport now. It's got a bit of French Village in it. If you zoom
What a
in, you can just
bizarre
see.
It's a strange
peninsula.
one.
Right. So it actually has part and you can see it here, sort of, that there's one side of the main street in Quispamsis,
Yeah.
which is the Hampton Road. There's one part here that's in the riding, and then another part here that's not. So
Wow.
Strange.
it's odd. So on one side of the street you're in the riding, another side of the street you're in a completely different one. So it's interesting. It has this interesting shape now. So, who are the candidates do we have? So, there's the Liberal Alison Townsend, and we'll talk
Mhm.
more about these folks in a second. And we
Mhm.
just have a time to do a couple minutes on them. There's Ted Fleming and there's Zara McKay Boyce. So, for Alison Townsend, I did look into her a bit. So, Alison is a practicing lawyer. She worked for several years for the Canadian Communication Systems Alliance, 22 years with that organization, 15 of them as the CEO, while she lived here in New Brunswick. And she stopped that in 2017 and founded her own workplace mediation and employment law firm here again in New Brunswick. So she calls herself a recovering lawyer. And she's worked extensively with the YMCA and the 100 Women Who Care. You guys have probably heard of that before.
Mhm.
So just a very well qualified candidate. And I think all of these candidates that we're going to talk about for Rothesay have a history, a similar history. So there's Ted Fleming. He's been the representative since 2012. He won that at a by-election in 2012 against Dominic Carty, as was one of the candidates. He
Yeah.
took over that riding, which was traditionally conservative, from Margaret Ann Blaney, who was in the news this week.
Yep.
So he's a guy who's owned several businesses. He's been the counsel for the port as well. And he's been on the board of directors for the Market Square. And his great grandfather was a premier, and his grandfather was also a premier. And his father tried to get into politics, didn't work out. But now Ted's coming up in his 12th year having the riding since that by-election. And then I don't know as much about Zara. I did look her up. She looks to be a consultant. She has a business background. She went to UNB and studied business. She also went to Algonquin College. Actually, I believe pronouns are they there.
Yes.
So it's just to be, so I apologize for that. So do you guys
And Joe,
want to
you
speak
know
about
a
Zara?
little bit about Zara.
Yeah, I know Zara and Allison actually. And Allison actually helped me incorporate my first business. I have a very big soft spot for her. She's incredibly encouraging
Allison
woman.
Townsend? Yeah.
And yeah, she really is. Her and her business partner, Trisha Perry, founded Residence. And we've actually had some training from them, Brent, recently.
Oh, we've had some training.
Some governance training, baby. But and they're great, and she's built a really great business in supporting a lot of different folks in the community. So that's a really great get for the Liberals, who we've criticized for having a large chunk of white males as part of their squad.
Yep.
So huge win for the Liberals there to have gotten Allison on the team, because she has a really rich history of being sort of the only woman in business in like this. The Fundy Cable story is really interesting of hers, which she's talked about at different conferences, being so often the only woman in the room for many, many years.
Her history with that organization must be so interesting.
It's fascinating.
I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, she's done some great talks in it at some conferences I've seen her. And Zara as well is a very powerful force, has been involved with Chroma deeply. I believe she was the president of the board of Chroma. Huge advocate for LGBTQISA plus rights. Phenomenal, like a real choice there again. And to a great Gary Crossman story, he said the same thing about the run out in Hampton, that you have a great option for both. And I think that same is true here in the Rothesay. I am tired of Ted Fleming, I gotta say.
Ted's a creature.
Need a change.
But wow. We're coming up to time here for Rogers, so we're going to sign off here for Rogers. We're going to keep going for you on the audio to talk about this for a few more minutes. Peace out, Rogers. Thank you,
We
Roger
love
Stevie.
you.
We'll see you next week.